What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Here's to Life. Today, I have a special guest here with us, the one, the only Loren Ridinger. And before we get into her latest accomplishment, okay, Scrambled or Sunny Side Up, I've admired you for a very long time for so many reasons.
You said so.
When it comes to business, obviously being co-founder of Market America and Shop.com, but also, you know, we talked about family a bit, and
Big thing.
just to see you as not only a wife, but a grandmother and a mother, and just the pride you take when it comes to family has been inspiring. So I really mean it when I say I've looked up to you for
Well,
many
you
reasons.
know how much I feel about you. I adore you, and watching you with your 98-year-old grandmother is such an inspiration. More so that, of course, that she's here, but the fact that you're a man and you make the time, and now your daughter gets to spend time with her. For me, that's just so inspirational. I love it. I love watching you guys together.
Dance
'cause
the
it's
night
so
away.
cute.
Yeah.
It's like I'm wondering like how many girls you have had in the past because of your grandmother.
Right,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like it's a very nice thing.
She's special. We're very blessed. Something I also admire about you is your ability to make people feel seen. I know you're big on encouraging people to live their best lives. And a quick story, I think the first time we met was on your boat at a party, one of the best parties I've ever been to, by the way. I mean, everybody
You've been
was
known
there.
for that.
I'm like, where am I right now? But almost to the point where I'm like, do I belong here? And after speaking with you and JR, I walked off that boat that night, and I remember like saying, no, that's exactly where I was supposed to be.
You belong there.
I belong there.
Yeah.
Because that's the energy you guys
I love that.
gave me. And
I meant that.
And I left that boat so inspired, and I'm like,
I wouldn't have had you there if I didn't want you there, just so you know.
yeah, it was special. And
I love having you around, and I love your energy. And we had fun that night, didn't we?
a lot of fun. Too much fun. But I left that boat, I remember saying to myself, I'm like, okay, that's goals, you know.
It's goals. I mean, whether it's goals or not, I don't know, because it's always a headache. But I get it. It's aspirational. It's inspirational. I get it.
We've had a lot of fun, and
It's been a beautiful journey.
yeah. And we got a lot to talk about, but I
Yes.
do want to kind of take it back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people think that you kind of
Came
met
from
JR,
something, and he was rich.
this guy was loaded, and just changed your life overnight.
I know. It's
right?
so funny. People always think like this girl hit the jackpot.
Right.
No, actually, this girl met a guy who didn't have any money, who I just fell in love with who he was. And he often used to say to me, you know, Loren, I'm so grateful that we met when I didn't have anything, because I wouldn't be sure. I would have never known.
Right.
And I think, you know, that's the thing that made our relationship so special, is that we both came from nothing, that we both worked. There was an 18-year age gap. You know, that was hard enough to beat between my dad and friends, you know, who judge that often. You know, we beat that. We stopped thinking about it. Then, of course, as time went on, you know, age gaps didn't seem so important anymore. Back in the day, it was.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't have anything to offer, but he offered himself.
Yeah.
And he was bright and intelligent and charismatic and entrepreneurial, when at a time when the word was never used.
Right.
You know, so I was immediately attracted to that.
Yeah, I love it. And as an 18-year-old girl, it's like this guy doesn't have much to offer, but
Nothing.
when he looked at you and said, no, Loren, we're going to be successful, we're going to change the world, right? You believed him.
Yeah. And you know, it's so amazing that you catch that, because it took me 2 years to remind myself of that he saw that in me.
Right.
It wasn't that.
And vice versa.
It wasn't that he just believed in me. I always thought it was his belief in me that really helped me get where I am today, and it is. But he saw the same thing about me with him, and I didn't give myself the credit for that for a long time, you know. He used to say all the time, if it wasn't for my wife believing in me, if it wasn't for this, and I used to think it was just something he would say to be nice. But it was true, because I always thought I was the pain in the ass, you know, who was like pushing him. Right. You know, I didn't see it as the inspiration behind him, because, you know, when you're both working so hard with the same vision, the same mission, nobody stops to document it. Nobody stops to document the success along the way. You just keep going. Mm-hmm. And so it was really, our marriage and our business has been a work of love, blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. And most people, you know, wouldn't do it because it was hard. Yeah. It was hard.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's just so inspiring. It really is like the American dream when you think about it. I know you said recently, and I loved it, that at one point you guys had your Wendy's dates, because really that was
couldn't
kind of,
afford anything other than a Wendy's.
you couldn't afford to go out and eat, at the fancy places. Wendy's night.
That was our night.
That was your night.
That was our date night. Wednesday night super bar. It was like an all-you-can-eat. Believe it or not, Wendy's had tacos back then, and that would be our big date. And we were okay with it.
What were those conversations like?
Oh, we were deep. He used to say, one day, Loren, there'll be the mall without walls. And I used to think, this guy's crazy. The mall without walls, that women will buy their shoes, their clothes, their makeup online. It seemed preposterous. Right. We like to try everything on. We go into a department store. Somebody makes this up. Yeah. The old day stuff. Yeah. And and I know that we live in such an instantaneous world today that, back then people thought it was crazy. Right. To think that we would be shopping online one day when most people do today. People thought we were nuts back then. And those conversations of, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to create products that, people want and need, and we're going to sell them to them online. And instead of advertising in magazines, we're going to pay people to advertise them. Right. It just seemed crazy. But when you think about it, it was like almost social media. Right. The concept of word of mouth and using the internet and using, social media. And back then it was called the World Wide Web. Mm-hmm. It was just information. It wasn't even products then. There was no stores. So when I have those conversations with people, then it's always, shocking how far we've come. It's been such a beautiful journey, such a beautiful journey of love, but work. And I always tell people, everybody's like, we want to do what you do. We want to get up on stage and inspire people. I'm like, will you do what I do? Will you do what I did to get here? Because it's not up here, that it's the work I did before I got here. Right. That was the work. That's the hard part.
People don't see a lot of that.
They don't see that. They don't see the hard work that goes into it. They don't see the book of the work it took to do that. Yeah. They don't see the roller coaster of emotions you go through to even get anywhere you are. You know that. Yeah, of course. To be able to be where you are today, it takes a lot of work and effort. And I always tell people, you're capable, you're able, but will you? Yeah.
Well, it goes back to kind of what I said earlier. I feel like you and JR really just see the good in people. You want the best for people. And I mean, you have some powerful friends. You have some successful friends. And I think I can speak for everybody when I say that that's so appreciated, right? From the Jennifer Lopez's and Serena Williams of the world to 26-year-old Nick Barrotta on that boat. It's like you give that energy off that I feel like everyone is just so thankful for.
I'm blessed, and I feel like I get that back from everybody, and I feel blessed. I feel like, when you have such a great circle of friends, you wouldn't have them unless you kind of did it for each other. Yeah. And so I've been so lucky to have so many great friends who have really helped me along, not just the loss of JR, but this, long journey I've been on.
Right.
And so it's exciting.
We'll get back to the importance of kind of keeping a small circle in a bit, but because you went from about $25 a week to $1 billion company. Yeah. Okay. When was the aha kind of we made it moment? Do you remember where you and JR were, what that conversation was like when you looked at each other?
The funny thing about that question is I'm not sure that, there was ever a moment that we looked at each other and said, there was a moment, but JR always made us work so hard, and the scoreboard for him was how many people we could help, how many people we could make a difference in their life. And so because of that, he never really let us stop to count money. It wasn't really like that. He never really let us slow down. It wasn't until right before I lost him that he wanted to slow down. I think, I recall about 6 years ago after a big conference, he had looked at me and said, we've done so much. We've done so much. We've done a lot of good. And then in October 17th, 2021, just shy of a year before he passed away, he had written me a note, and he left it on my side of the bed, which was his way of really like getting me to read something without interfering with what was going on with the day, because the day was busy.
Those love letters, we know.
Well, there was lots of love letters, but this was one of those ones like he really wanted me to see and have the time to read it. And there would be times where he would know where to put something, knowing like, okay, she's getting in bed. Right. This is the right time to give it to her, which was thoughtful, meaning he didn't want me to have distractions. Right. And so I remember that letter was very clear, and it said, we've done a lot. We've made it. We've done it, and we should go take some time to do some things for us. And that's the first time that I think he ever really said to me, or I ever really thought, he's right.
Yeah.
We could take some time for ourselves and do this. Because all along it's been, when you do what you love, you don't mind doing it.
Right, of course.
And I think that was always our journey. I think that was like something that we really loved doing. So it wasn't until that moment that I really thought, okay, here we are.
Wow.
We did this.
And that's about 30-something years later.
Yeah, it's just 2021 that it really happened.
Crazy. Unbelievable. I know he must be so proud looking down about
Thank you.
this baby right here.
Thank you.
And that you're still helping people, right?
Trying. That's my goal. That's my role. I feel like that's where I serve best.
I honestly, I feel like this is going to be very transformative, and I can't wait for people to read it. Obviously,
Lots of lessons.
and
Lots of love letters should be
love
written,
letters,
right?
love letters and lessons. That's
right,
it.
love letters and lessons.
Something I highlighted here, which I love, and I want to read quickly because I feel like grief is kind of hard to define.
It is.
But I love what you said here. Grief is an extension of love. I get even goosebumps reading this right now. The deeper you love, the deeper you grieve. It's the shadow side of what was once light. And even though it's suffocating and feels like it's pulling you under, there's a strange comfort in knowing that this pain is the flip side of a boundless love that shaped who I am. Grief, as unbearable as it is, doesn't diminish that love. It proves how fully and fiercely we loved while we had the chance.
Exactly. And so in the worst moments of my life, I would have never traded the grief for the love or the love for the grief. They're one and the same.
Right.
And so I feel like that's the one thing I've definitely figured out, that they both coexist no matter what. We just don't talk about it, right? Because death is such a taboo subject. I can talk with, my best friends about it and say, hey, let's talk about it now, and we can all do it now. But when you think about it, nobody ever talks about it. You don't want to think about dying. Right. You don't want to think about what it looks like after. In fact, when we're kids, we shield our children from it. We don't no, you don't need to go to the funeral. Don't need to do this. Don't want you to see your grandparents. I remember my parents not letting me go to my grandparents' funeral for fear that we were too young at like 8 years old. And I think it's not talked about in schools. And so I wasn't familiar, even though I'd lost my mom, I'd lost my dad. I knew what grief was very well. I suffered greatly when I lost both my parents. I never suffered like I suffered with JR. I really went through it. And I finally figured out that it's really an extension of love. It's just the darkest side of it.
Right. I love it. No, very, very powerful. And I know that didn't click for you immediately, right? You were down bad, and I know it's still, every day is still
you go through it every day. There's not a day I don't go by and have a moment in the shower. I'll cry and say, come on, baby, let's go do this, or push myself out. I think it's like somebody said to me the other day, did you write a book about grief? And I'm like, I can't, because I don't have the solution for anybody.
Yeah.
I wish I did. There is none. Right. You have to go through it. It will stay with you forever. It's the dark side of love.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of lessons I've learned along the way, and that helps.
Yeah. And I mean, you're continuously turning your pain into power here.
I'm trying to. I'm doing the best I can.
What's the one thing you'd want people to walk away with after reading this book?
I want them to realize that they don't have to, and by the way, you don't have to have lost someone to get a lot of lessons from it. I want people to get that you can do things now while you still have people. You can write those letters now. You can send a simple text, say, you know what, I'm thinking of you. Do you know how much you mean to me today? Those messages that JR gave me along the way, that I used to say to him, like, why are you writing me? I'm right in front of you. Why are you writing me? I'm right in front of you. Hello, I'm here. And I think it's that conversation, that communication. And I used to say, why do you write me? He said, because you may misunderstand what I'm saying if I just say it. I want you to understand what I'm saying to you. And I took that for granted often, and we lost the art of writing. That was a very important message in the book. I also want people to realize their power, that it's there no matter what. And you started with that by saying, JR saw me as someone who believed in him. And I forgot about that in this 2-year journey. I forgot about how much I empowered him also. I always thought it was just him who empowered me during this grief. And then I figured out, when I started to get my own power back, I was reminded that I know how to do this. I've been doing it my whole life with him. And he saw something in me that could push myself to be the very best, that we don't have to be the same we were yesterday. Right. That our journey's gonna look different as life changes. My journey's certainly different now. I never expected this. Do I miss the old Loren? Yes. Yeah. Do I miss the old life of Loren? Yes. That breaks my friends' hearts when they hear that, but I say it's okay. Yeah. because there's a new Loren, and you don't have to be the same as you were yesterday, and you get to be better today than you were yesterday, and it's up to us to define that. It really is. It's up to us to define, and I want people to see that maybe they haven't seen their best side yet. Maybe that they haven't pushed themselves to the limit that they can do to start to see who they are and what they can be, and stop waiting for somebody to come in and rescue you. You rescue you. You hold yourself hostage. You do this for you. Call 911 on yourself. Rescue yourself. Do something for yourself. You know, life is short. You know, it's a journey, and we need to take time to enjoy it and make something matter. This is all we got.
Yeah. We're all on borrowed time, right?
They're on borrowed time. We're on lease.
Yep. I love
Our
that.
children, too, you know. I see you with that little girl. Remember, she's only yours on that pier. She'll be yours forever.
Every day I am just,
I know, and I
squeezing
know
all I
you're
could.
doing it. And I love when you see you do that. But, you know, our kids, as much as we worship and love them, right? They belong, eventually they belong to themselves. And they end up doing their own thing, and it's so
I want to
hard to
keep her at
see
a year
it.
and a half right
I
now.
know.
I'm just, yeah,
Keep
she's-
her little, freeze her in time.
I know. I wish I could. JR was known for a lot of amazing sort of theatrics, I guess you could say, on stage, right? I mean, you see him with the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, one of my favorite quotes is the 2 dates and the dash, live the dash. What was your favorite JR-ism, I guess we could
What are
say?
you going to do with the dash? Yeah. And, you know, it's only because, you know, like on our second date, he took me to a cemetery. And, you know, I was 18, and I was thinking, this guy's out of his mind.
What are we doing
What
here?
are we doing here? I was thinking, he's going to murder me. You know, I was like, I'm in trouble. And I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I'd met him. We were driving down the road, and he was going like 85 miles an hour. And I was like, why are you going so fast? It's 35 miles an hour here, and he's from Jersey.
Right.
So he didn't know that. And I was like, you know, it's 35 miles an hour here. And he was like, if I had a license, I'd go faster. I was thinking,
I love
okay, there's
that.
JR.
That's great, yeah.
And then he took me to the cemetery, and he said, get out. I was like, oh, God, we're in trouble. He's like, get out and walk up and down. He's like, pick any one of them. You know, which one? Which one? This one, that one? I was like, I don't know, this one. He's like, you know what? What does it have in common? They all have something in common. He's like, they all have a birth date and a death date. And all that matters is that little dash in between. What are you going to do with your life? I want to fill it up with so many things. You're going to be with me. We're going to fill up this dash with so many things. And I thought, that was the moment I think I fell in love with him.
Wow.
And I often told him, you know, early on in our relationship, I was like, I think I love you. And he used to say, I like you a whole lot. Don't let it go to your headline. And I was like, this guy is crazy. Does he not see I'm young, cute? Come on, what's wrong with me that you're not doing this? And I realized, I was like, it took him time.
Right.
He wasn't quite ready for me, I think. Right. And so, and we had this beautiful journey of love that was turbulent, full of ups and downs, but a real love story of two people who hung in there, fought for each other, and made time for each other. And, you know, we used to joke that, you know, if we don't do anything with the dash, what's life worth living for?
Right. So powerful. You said, and I know I don't have too much time here, but you guys did fight for each other. And I want to go back, too, because there's a story that you've also mentioned about you really were on your way to be the finest stewardess.
I'm gonna kill
right?
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
we know that right.
Yes.
And
the hottest stewardess.
The hottest steward. Yeah, right. Eastern Airlines.
Yes,
is that
it
right?
was crazy. And I was like, why am I doing this, Dad?
Yeah,
I was so mad at my dad. And I was like, Dad, I do not. He woke me up. I was like, almost 19. He's like, you're going to be a flight attendant. I was like, well, I don't want to be a flight attendant. I'm afraid to fly. And he was like, what do you mean? You're going to be a flight attendant. You're going to be great at this. And I remember we pulled up on Holden Road in North Carolina. There was 300 people outside. I was like, Dad, I don't want to do this. There's no Ubers, no cell phones. I couldn't call a friend. There was no way to reach out to anybody. And he waited outside. I waited for hours. And all I kept doing while I was waiting in line was thinking about, how am I going to get out of this? I don't want to do this. I'm going to do something with this guy I just met, this new boyfriend of mine. We're going to have the mall without walls.
This guy who just speeds all over town. What's going on?
Speeds all over town. Took me to the cemetery. I'm in love with this guy. We're going for it. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And I waited in that line. I got to the front of the line, and she was like, what makes you want to fly the friendly skies? I'm like, not a damn thing. I don't want to do it. I don't like your airlines. And she was like, oh, ha, ha, ha. And she was like, not getting my story at all. And I thought for sure I blew it perfectly. I wasn't going to get the job, and I got offered the job. And I was devastated. I had to go to this 4-week training, and remember my boyfriend, then JR, who became my husband, wrote me and called me and said, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you there? And so he picked me up at the airport after 4 weeks of training and said, if you don't go home and tell your dad you're not going to do this, you're going to become a version of yourself you never meant to be. Wow. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew so many people had become somebody they never wanted to be. Right. I didn't want to be one of them. I went home, I told my dad, guess what? My days of flying, the friendly skies are over, and I'm moving out. Yeah. But I didn't tell JR I was moving out, and I showed up at his door with a bag, and that was the beginning of our love story.
It's so special, and I love that story, and it really is just the perfect example of kind of how you guys were just the perfect team and needed one another. Quickly, did your parents approve of JR right away?
My mother loved him. Okay. My father did not right away. He ended up loving him. Yeah.
How do you not love him?
My mom loved JR, and she used to say, like, one day he's going to be something special. And at the time, I didn't get it because JR had girlfriends all over town. And I was like, I don't understand this. I'm 18. Right. Why do you have all these girlfriends? He's like, I'm not ready for you yet. Right. I'm not ready for you yet. That was his answer. So funny. And in many ways, I think he was being honest. Yeah. In many ways, I think that was his way of saying, like, don't beat me up, but when I give myself to you, I'll be ready. But right now, I'm not. And I've learned that's a big lesson in this book. Is like, not everything happens on our time zone. Not everything happens right when we want it to. And we have to accept that doesn't make somebody right or wrong. It just means not now. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you don't keep trying. And I remember I used to think, like, he's crazy, but I couldn't leave him. My mom used to say, he's going to be a great husband and great father and a great grandfather one day. He's going to be super special one day. Yeah. Stay with him. Give him the patience to get on your time zone. And I did. Yeah. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life. And he knows that. I mean, I would tell him that often. He was a pain in the ass, but he was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, I committed my whole life to him in our journey. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for that. I think about it's so easy to just throw in the towel and not make something work or find problems with things. JR and I had this funny thing. Every 6 months, we would analyze our relationship. Most people don't know that, but we did. We'd sit down and he'd say, okay, I don't like when you do this to me. I just want to let you know, like when you put your brother ahead of me or you take his side in an argument, that bothers me. And I'd say, instead of being like, I used to say like, okay, you're a baby, get over it. Right. Come on, Jerry, you're a grown man, you're the leader of the company, let's stop. Instead, I switched my vernacular to be like, I understand. I don't want you to feel that way. It's not my intention. I love you. I see everything you say. That matters to me. Wow. Those words didn't mean I necessarily agreed with what he was saying, but the way I said it changed our relationship in the last 15 years because I saw him. Wow. And so sometimes it's those little messages, those ways that we communicate that can change everything. Yeah. And I think it happened right on time. It happened right when it needed to for both of us. And I could say to him, like, you know, I don't like when you get upset if I offer a suggestion and you don't agree with it. I want you to hear the whole suggestion. So we would take those moments and we'd have 2 rules. You know, you couldn't scream out. If you didn't like what they said, you had to listen to it.
This is actually like a TikTok trend right now.
Yeah.
We listen and we don't judge. Do you guys know? We listen and we don't judge.
That's
the couples,
true.
Yeah, you guys started that. That's great.
Yeah, that's true. It's like you listen to what each other doesn't like
healthy,
for the moment.
Very healthy.
And it's healthy. Yeah. And you learn to navigate it a different way. And you say, okay, I may not agree with it, but don't blurt that out.
Right.
And find a way to handle it differently. Because maybe I didn't agree with, you know, how he saw Mark was handling something or vice versa. And maybe I did agree with him. Sometimes I did agree with him. But instead of saying, you're acting like a baby, come on, be the leader of the company, I'd say, I understand how you feel. I could see how that would bother you. What can we do to solve it? Yeah. That changed the game. Right. That was the fixer of all fixers. That was like the solution to having a great marriage. Yeah. That was the solution of being seen for him, for me being seen, if he would acknowledge me in the ways I needed to be seen. Right. You know, or recognizing me for something that I did, but not seeing it. Yeah. Like I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to see like how much effort I would put into, you know, I worked harder than anybody else on the team in my mind because I wanted to impress him. Right. I wanted to. I had the strong desire to show up. I didn't have the desire to be with somebody who just wanted me to be with them. I wanted to work, but I also wasn't a yes man. Of course. You know, I wanted to give my input and I wanted it to be heard. And he loved that about me. That's why he fell in love with me.
Yeah. No, he
I'm a lot.
You're the best kind of a lie.
I'm
though.
a
You're
lie.
the best kind of a lie. No, but reading this too, it's like JR. It's like he's still inspiring me through the book, right? To be a better husband, be a better father, and even these love stories, right? And
That's also what we want people to get.
it's I'm like, with not even realizing, I'm like, oh man, like, and it's very powerful. And then something else I love too is like, you guys couldn't go to sleep fighting. You guys had to work that
There's
out.
a real strong rule. I learned that from my grandmother, but we lived by it. We had two major disagreements in life. One was how to raise our child early on. And it really came down to he came from a very strict upbringing and I didn't. I grew up with, there was four of us. My mom was mushy and loving and, very much like you are with your grandmother. My dad was really tough. His dad was really loving, warm, a tough coach, but his mom was very strict.
Right.
And so we grew up differently. He was more like, you must do this, and my mom would lead with love. And so we both agreed that leading with love would get us where we needed to where we needed to go. And it's ultimately what happened is how we raised our daughter. And I think it's how she's raised her children. And I think it's been the most beautiful compromise of all time to lead with love. More than, okay, well, education's important. And they're all important. But how do we get there? Right. Let's lead with love. And I think, that was one of the big disagreements, but we solved it right away. It's like, we're going to get on the same page quickly. Yeah. And I think communication is also a lost art. I think we stopped talking.
My grandmother says that a lot. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's different these days.
Probably why you go over there and see her a lot.
Have to. Yeah.
Probably go over there and see her a lot because, you get the wise wisdom from your grandmother.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Loren's dropping some gems here. Before I let you go, what's next for Loren Ridinger?
Oh, I think it's just beginning. There's this new Loren, this new journey that I'm emerging from. I'm looking at, live shopping right now, doing things that are really what I see in the future, doing things that are really revolutionary, and always thinking, you can't think 5 years ahead anymore. You got to think like 10 and 15 years ahead. Because what used to be, a paradigm shift is totally sped up now. We're out of time. If we don't think about it today, we're finished tomorrow. Yeah. And so I think there's so many beautiful things ahead, but I've decided that my journey, my life looks like a lot like helping a lot more people. That's my goal. That's my journey. That's what I want. And I'm going to do it as much as I can.
Well, I'm rooting for you.
I love you.
And I do appreciate it. I love you too. Guys, Scrambled or Sunny Side Up.
Yes.
Get your copy. You'll see the link and all the goods down below. Get yours today. I love you. Thank you, Loren.
I adore you. I love you. I'm so happy to be here.
Proud of you.
Thank you, honey. That means so much.
You got it.